What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for May 26, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery, and the roller coaster that is the Philly seasons continues. They lost 8-5 to the Braves last night in a game that actually was a pretty decent game, pretty entertaining to watch. Back and forth the entire time. Braves would go up, the Phillies would go up. It was tied. Then one would go up, the other would go up, and it just I don't know. Last night seemed like a microcosm of their entire season. Like that whole roller coaster. They kept battling back whenever they needed to. Nola gave up a couple bombs, but I mean the Braves are a good team. That's gonna happen. But I mean, man, Soto blowing up in the eighth is killer. There's their bad little league inning right there, and I mean it's very consistent that always happens. So last night, like I said, I feel as though was a microcosm of their whole season. Bohm and Harper both hit home runs last night. It's not. I mean, they're close. They're so close to just some bad luck, some bad calls, or whatever. It's just they're so close, and I can't figure it out. And I mean, Soto himself even said, like, it's been a roller coaster for him. He comes out and has a bad outing, then a good one. And they just need to be consistent. And to be inconsistent in the same game, I feel as though sometimes that's harder to do than to just be consistent. But tough one to lose last night. They're back at it today. We said, they need to come out with at least a split in order to do something. Winning 3 would be great. It's going to be tough to win 3 in a row, though. But this is what we've been doing all year. So they just need to be consistent and pick what they're going to be. Speaking of picking, go to phillygoat.com for all of your Philly sports apparel and t-shirt needs. They have a ton of Phillies gear on there. It'd be a good time this weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. Lots of sales, lots of good things going on. Just Father's Day's coming up. I mean, it's been a bad time right now to be a Philly fan, so retail therapy to help make yourself feel better. But go to phillygoat.com, check out their selection, all the teams, a lot of other Philly-centric things. When you get there, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order at checkout. You won't be disappointed. That's phillygoat.com. All right, we're going to change it up and start with the Sixers playoff spotlight. Excuse me, allergies are still killing me today. And we're going to spotlight the 2011-2012 team. And that season was shortened and didn't start till Christmas due to a lockout. It was a 66-game season. Sixers did go 35-31, third place in the division, 8th in the conference. Lou Williams led them with 15 points per game as the sixth man off the bench. Spencer Hall, 7.3 rebounds. Elton Brand, 7.2. So they had a couple big guys there. Andre Iguodala, 5.5 assists per game. He also was voted into the All-Star game. So just a lot of guys. Evan Turner was on that team. Drew Holiday, Thad Young. It was like the core of that team right there led to the process. They were known for just being, I mean, they were young, but they didn't necessarily have that guy that they needed to put them over the edge. But this is what led to the process because they were just the purgatory team, like 7-8 seed in the playoffs or just outside of the lottery. My boy LaVoy Allen was on that team too, Temple's own. But this team, they would play the Bulls. They were the 8th seed in the playoffs. They would play the Bulls in the first round. Lost game 1. However, in that game, Derek Coleman. I'm more on Derek Coleman later. That's why he's fresh on my mind. But Derrick Rose tore his ACL late in that game and would be out for the rest of the series, which really changed the whole complexion of that series. The Sixers had no shot against the Bulls that year. And they were a very good team. Joakim Noah was on that team. But the Sixers would win the next 3 games, lose game 5, and then won Game 6. I mentioned Joakim Noah because he sprained his ankle and also missed some time in that series and was banged up. So they were definitely fortunate from an injury standpoint, if you could call it that. But they beat them 4-2 to become only the fourth 8 seed ever to win a playoff series against the first seed. The Nuggets did it, the Knicks did it, the Warriors did it, as well as the Grizzlies. And then we know this year the Miami Heat did it against Milwaukee. As luck would have it, the Sixers that year would play the Celtics in the second round. And it was a very defensive series. And that Sixers team had to play good defense because they didn't really have a ton of scoring. So a lot of low-scoring games in the 80s and 90s. But the team split each of the first 4 games, each team winning 1 game on the road. So Game 5 is tied at 2. Boston won Game 5. Sixers actually won Game 6, which set up a huge Game 7 for them to go to the Eastern Conference Final. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The Sixers-Celtics playing to see who goes to the Eastern Conference Final. But what that does is it leads us into this day in Philly sports history. And on this day, May 26, 2012, wait till you hear this score. The Celtics beat the Sixers 85-78 in Game 7 of the second round of the playoffs. Andre Iguodala had 18. Elton Brand and Drew Holiday each had 15. Thaddeus Young had 10 rebounds. Rajon Rondo and Kevin Garnett each had 18 for the Celtics. This was kind of the tail end of the big three, the original big three, that when Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett all came to play together. That Celtics team would go on to lose to the Heat 4-3 in the Eastern Conference Final. No shock there. Their head coach was one Glenn Doc Rivers. So we know all about his record in big games. They would get to the Eastern Conference Final a few times during his reign in Boston and only win the one championship, which, again, I said it 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. Doc Rivers was who he was. He lived off of Garnett, Pierce, and Allen just running through that year that they had the big three super team and hasn't done much else. So, but also give you a quick little bonus LeBron James rant. And I know one of the big debates is who's the best basketball player of all time. You have the Michael Jordan camp. You have the Kobe Bryant people over here. You have the LeBron James truthers. Then you have the old heads like my Uncle Randy who will say it's Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know. I think as far as impact on the game, definitely Wilt. But I'm a Jordan guy. That's who I grew up watching. And I will say this was the first of 2 NBA titles that LeBron James won in a shortened season. He won this one that was shortened due to a lockout, and then he won the one that in the bubble that I will always put an asterisk next to that one anyway. So be sure to give me the feedback on that. I'm sure there's some LeBron truthers out there that will tell me he's the greatest. Blah, 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 blah. No, he didn't. I don't think he. I don't know. Maybe I'll get into that in a Back to the Future episode, but LeBron James won 2 titles in shortened seasons where Jordan, no, he did not. And he played, say what you want, the NBA was tougher. They called a lot more fouls. And I mean, I've seen so many things on Twitter where Jordan's basically getting punched in the face and they don't call it a foul. And LeBron you blow on him and he's like, oh, he flops. So I don't want to turn this in because this is a Philly-based thing, and LeBron never really has done much against the Sixers except for beat them a couple times in the playoffs. But the 2011-2012 Sixers, 8th seed, they knocked off the number 1 seed Chicago Bulls before losing in 7 games to the Celtics. Game 7 was on this day back in 2012. Speaking of the Sixers, new Back to the Future dropped last night. We examined the relationship and the era of Larry Brown and Allen Iverson and see who's really to blame for what happened there and why the Sixers didn't win. So be sure to check that out wherever you get your podcasts. But This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Friday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.